My name is Will Ryder. I was once a ranger, a man sworn to protect, to patrol the wild, to serve the land and the people who cherished it. But after years of structure, chains of command, the constant hum of authority pressing against my chest, I walked away. I left it all behind. I traded the chatter of radios and the comfort of human voices for the silence of the forest. I wanted freedom. Living free was a dream, until they came for me. The first weeks were everything I imagined. The cabin I built stood tall on the ridge, hidden between towering pines. I drew water from a well, split logs for heat, and listened to the rhythm of nature as if it had been composed only for me. No traffic, no bills, no screens. Just me, the soil, and the canopy stretching into the sky. I thought I had found peace. I thought I had escaped. But freedom, as I learned, has a price. And that price came knocking on my walls in the dead of night. At first, I told myself it was nothing. The forest is full of sounds. Animals crossing, trees bending, wind shifting. But one morning, I found footprints outside the cabin. Too large to be a coyote, too heavy for deer, bare, almost human. They trailed from the tree line, circled the cabin twice, then vanished. I had not seen another person in days. Who would come this far into the woods, this far off the map? I brushed it off. I shouldn't have. 2 nights later, the food I had stored, jars sealed tight, sacks tied with rope, was scattered across the floor. Not taken, just disturbed, as if something wanted me to know it had been there. And on the door, faint lines I could not explain. Scratches in a pattern, shallow yet deliberate, carved as though with bone or stone. I began to realize the forest was not empty. Every night the unease grew. I would lie in bed listening. The fire crackled, then died. Beyond the walls, the woods changed character. What was once calming now carried a rhythm, a presence. Twigs snapping at regular intervals, as if footsteps circled again and again. And then the breath. So faint at first I thought it was mine, echoing in the stillness. But no. Something stood outside, inhaling, exhaling, close enough to fog the glass of my window. I did not open the curtains. I couldn't. The nearest town was miles away. When I last visited, the old men at the diner muttered stories. Trappers gone missing, hunters never coming back, search parties finding nothing but shredded tents. The authorities dismissed it. Bears, wolves, frost. But the locals knew better. Something older, they whispered. Something that waits for those who abandon the world of men. I used to laugh at their words. Now I can't. I set traps, strung noise lines, anything to confirm I wasn't imagining this. The proof came quickly. One dawn, I stepped outside and found the lines down, the traps twisted, not broken but careful. It was not hunting me as prey. It was studying me, watching me lose sleep, watching me weaken. That's when I understood. This was a game, and I was the piece being moved. One night, the walls shook. A blow, so sudden I nearly dropped my lantern. The lights flickered, then went dark. I pressed my recorder to my lips and whispered what I feared would be my last words. If you find this, don't come here. Don't even look for me. Living free was a dream until they came for me. I left the tape rolling because I knew the truth. If I didn't survive, someone needed to hear it. Someone needed to know. The scratching began inside the cabin next. First in the rafters, then along the floorboards, crawling in places no hand or tool could reach. My mirror cracked in the silence of midnight, splintering into a spiderweb with no cause. The sound that followed was worse, a slow drag, like claws across bone. It was not outside anymore. It was with me. I barricaded the door, shoved furniture against the windows, prayed to gods I had long forgotten. Every noise, every breath echoed back as if mocking me. I realized then, I wasn't alone, and I never had been. They had always been here, waiting for someone foolish enough to live on their land without permission. Someone like me. This message may be the only record left. If you're hearing it, remember this. Some places are empty for a reason. Some dreams are traps. Do not seek freedom here. Do not step off the map. They are watching. They always have been. And they do not forgive trespassers. What happened to me is only the beginning of the story. And if you want to know more, if you want every tape, every detail, every chilling discovery pulled from this nightmare, then subscribe to MindFuel. This is where the truth lives, and where we bring it into the light. Stay with us, because this is not over. Not for me, not for them, and not for anyone who dares to follow. I didn't walk into this life by accident. My name is Will Ryder, and before all of this, before the silence, before the fear, I was like so many others. Worn down, spent years working for people who never knew my name, answering to bosses who never cared if I slept, who only cared that the reports were on their desks before sunrise. My life was spreadsheets, late nights, buzzing phones, and the endless cycle of obligations that felt like a slow suffocation. So I quit, cold, packed what little I had left, bought land that nobody wanted, and cut myself off. No bosses, no bills, no neighbors, just me and the forest. The first days were golden. Every chore had meaning. Splitting wood wasn't work. It was survival. It was rhythm. I'd spend mornings fishing in the stream, afternoons reinforcing the cabin, evenings staring at the fire until the flames blurred into constellations above. I journaled by lantern light, wrote about freedom like it was the only real thing left in the world. The air was cleaner. My body was stronger. My mind calmer. I told myself I had made it, that I had finally reclaimed my life. Nights were the best of all. I'd step outside, tilt my head back, and there they were, stars, thousands of them. A sky so clear it felt alive. No street lamps, no engines, just the pulse of the earth breathing beneath me. For a moment, I was convinced I had done it. I had beaten the system. But peace is fragile, and in the cracks of that peace, something else seeped through. It started small. On the third week, I found stones, 5 of them, stacked neatly in a column near the edge of the tree line, balanced in a way that seemed too careful to be accidental. I crouched, studied them, and laughed it off. Kids, maybe. Some hiker playing tricks. But the nearest road was miles away. Nobody came here. Still, I brushed it aside. 2 days later, I spotted another stack, this one taller, tucked behind my cabin where no trail led. Again, I told myself it was nothing. Wind, maybe. Some strange chance. Because the alternative, that someone else was out here with me, moving in the dark, was a thought I wasn't ready to let in. So I ignored it. I kept chopping wood, kept journaling, kept fishing. But even as I tried to drown it out, the memory of those stones stayed with me. When I looked up at the stars, when I sat by the fire, I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was aware of me in ways I hadn't considered. It was supposed to be my sanctuary, but little by little, it began to feel like something else. If you've stayed with me this far, understand, this is only the beginning. What seemed harmless would become a trail of warnings I should never have ignored. Subscribe to MindFuel and keep walking with me into this story, because every step closer reveals just how fragile freedom really was. The first real sign that something wasn't right came with the food. I kept my supplies in sealed jars and canvas sacks, stored neatly in the corner of the cabin. I checked them every night, habit drilled into me from years of rationing in the field. One morning, I found them scattered across the floor. Lids loosened, rope ties undone, but nothing was gone. No bite marks, no paw prints in the dirt. Just touched, handled, as if someone, or something, wanted me to know it had been there, and that it could come back whenever it wanted. That night I barely slept. Around 3 in the morning, I woke to a sound I couldn't place. A whistle, soft, long, steady, rising and falling. It carried just outside the cabin walls. Not a bird, not the wind, something deliberate. Someone standing there in the dark, shaping the air into a signal meant only for me. I gripped the lantern but didn't dare move. I listened as it circled, first near the window, then near the door, then fading into the trees. From then on, I saw them, the faint reflections. At first, I thought it was dew catching the moonlight, but dew doesn't blink. Between the trees, low and far apart, two pale gleams would catch the firelight from my window. They'd hold, steady as eyes, and then vanish. Always just far enough away to make me doubt myself. Always close enough to remind me that I wasn't alone. The worst was what I found near the stream. A deer carcass, skinned with precision. The hide peeled back in clean lines, the body left untouched. Not eaten, not scavenged, just wasted. I wrote it down in my journal that night. They don't kill to eat. They kill to practice? Even as I wrote the words, I didn't want to believe them. But the evidence was there, rotting in the dirt. The forest grew heavier with each day. Sounds I'd never noticed before pressed in. Tapping branches, shuffling in the underbrush, the echo of footsteps that always stopped when I turned to listen. My sleep came in short, broken bursts. I tried to convince myself that it was paranoia, that my mind was filling the silence with fear. Until the night the tapping began. I woke to a noise so delicate it could have been rain. But it wasn't rain. It was knuckles, tapping, slow and patient, against the glass of my only window. I froze, blanket pulled tight, breath caught in my chest. The tapping went on for minutes, maybe more. When I finally gathered the courage to look, there was nothing. Only darkness. Only the reflection of my own pale face staring back. But in the morning, I found them. Prints. Smudged, unmistakable handprints on the inside of the glass. This was no longer about peace. No longer about solitude. I had walked willingly into something I couldn't explain. Something that had been here long before me. And now, it knew I was here. If you're listening to this, understand, I ignored the warnings, and the price of that ignorance was... Stay with me, and subscribe to MindFuel. Because the story doesn't end here. What happened next proves that once they've chosen you, there is no turning back. By the time the handprints appeared on the inside of the glass, I knew I had to fight back. I wasn't about to leave, not after everything I'd built. So I did what I knew best. I set traps, snare lines, deadfalls, alarm wires strung between trees to rattle tin cans if anything crossed. I worked through the day, sweat soaking my clothes, telling myself that once I saw what it was, once I caught proof, the fear would end. But the forest mocked me. Each trap was sprung by morning, every single one. No blood, no tracks, no signs of struggle. Just empty. Reset almost, as if something had studied my work and dismantled it piece by piece. I realized then, I wasn't hunting. I was being tested. The nights grew longer. The sounds changed. It wasn't just whistles or footsteps anymore. It was laughter, thin, reedy, stretched across the valley. Not joyous, not human. It carried on the wind and seeped through the cabin walls. Sometimes high, sometimes low, sometimes overlapping, as if more than one voice mocked me at once. I pressed my hands against my ears, but it stayed with me, echoing inside my head long after it stopped. One afternoon, desperate for normalcy, I went fishing. The stream had always been my refuge. The cool water, the pull of the line, it made me feel grounded, tethered to something real. That's when I heard it. Splashes upstream, heavy, deliberate. I looked, and my stomach turned to stone. Something tall stood in the shallows, bent low, crawling through the current on elongated limbs. Humanoid in outline, but its movement was wrong, jerking, too fluid where it should have resisted, as though it wasn't fighting the water but flowing with it. It raised its head, and for a moment, I thought it saw me. I ran, harder than I had ever run. Branches clawed my face, roots tore at my boots. When I broke through the clearing, my heart nearly stopped. The cabin door was wide open. I knew I had locked it. I knew I had barred it shut. And yet the door swayed lazily, as though someone had been waiting inside for me to come home. I barricaded everything that night. Dragged furniture, nailed planks, stacked wood against the windows. My safe haven became a fortress, every exit sealed tight. I told myself nothing could get in now, nothing could reach me. But then I heard it, my own voice, calling from the darkness beyond the wall. Calm, steady, too exact to be an echo. "You wanted to be alone," it said. "We're here now." The words cut through me, because they weren't wrong. I had wanted solitude. I had begged for it. And now, I wasn't just alone. I was chosen. If you think this is the end, you're wrong. The real horror was just beginning. Stay with me, because what happened next proved they were not only watching me, they were waiting for me. Subscribe to MindFuel, because you'll want. By the fourth week, I knew hiding wouldn't save me. Every sound outside was closer. Every night, the walls trembled with movement I could not see. I stopped sleeping altogether. Instead, I searched. I followed the stone stacks deeper into the forest, tracing the pattern they formed. They weren't random markers. They were pointing somewhere. That's how I found the cave. A mouth cut into the hillside, nearly hidden by moss and roots. The air inside was damp, metallic, heavy with rot. My lantern shook as I stepped forward, and the walls came alive with symbols, scratched into stone, the same marks that circled my cabin door. I moved deeper, and the ground changed. Bones, scattered like leaves, not just deer or elk, but human. Skulls with cracks split through them, spines curled unnaturally. Beside them, the remnants of others who had come here before me. Tattered tents, rusted knives, shattered lantern glass. Men and women who had dreamed the same dream I did. To live free, to escape. But they hadn't escaped. They had been collected. I pressed record, my voice barely holding steady. This has been happening for decades. They don't let anyone live free out here, not for long. When I left the cave, night was already falling. I felt it then, the certainty that they had let me find it, that they wanted me to know what would happen next. And on that final night, they came inside. It started as scratching in the rafters, but grew louder, heavier. Boards bent, nails squealed, and then shadows poured across the walls, shapes that didn't belong to any living thing I knew. Distorted, tall, bending at angles no spine should bend. Every movement came with a sound, bones cracking, joints splitting. My lantern dimmed, the flame shivering as if afraid to burn. I didn't wait. I couldn't. I ran. Out the back, through the trees, into the endless dark. I don't remember how long I sprinted before I dropped the recorder, but I remember the sound that followed me. A dozen feet chasing. Not quite running, not quite crawling. Always close. Never touching. Just waiting for me to fall. The last thing the recorder caught was static. Then, under the static, a voice. Not mine, not human. A whisper drawn out of the dark. Another one dreaming. And then, nothing. If you're hearing this now, you know the truth. Some dreams should never be chased. Some freedom is not worth finding. Subscribe to MindFuel if you want to understand what happened here, if you want to keep this story alive, because the forest took me. And if you're not careful, it might take you too.